I'm active in the blockchain, self-sovereign identity area. I work with some of these guys on the standards, on the sovereign governance, TNO, blockchain. Well, all interesting. So I'm not going to have it about what is self-sovereign identity, the bad and the ugly. And we all understand the trust triangle. So what is the thing that we are now looking at? Well, at this moment, self-sovereign identity, when you look at implementations, there are many local implementations of standards, but they're all verticals, point solutions. They don't work together. It was already mentioned that there is only one SSI wallet in this room that supports multiple identification technologies. That's the one being done by Andre. The question is, going from this situation where we have many second generation solutions that are still federated but with a high level of centralization, to get to true SSI, whatever that may mean, but at least that is interoperable, technologically mature, society grade. And here are some of the bullets. Plenty of SSI wallets with all of types where you can easily switch between wallets. You can port your data from one wallet to the other. You can combine wallets and use them together. You have all kinds of interoperable protocols, data models, APIs, certification standards, etc. One important thing that I haven't heard today yet is that we are looking for solutions that are intrinsically symmetrical and empowering. And usually we think of issuer, holder, verifier, where the holder is the client, the citizen, that has to prove something to the verifier, which is the powerful big corporation, which is the government. And as long as we keep that ID and have it intrinsically in SSI, then we have with SSI the same problem that we are disempowering citizens. So the concept of having this symmetry is here I'm showing you a symmetrical transaction between two parties. One party we call consumer, the other party we call travel site. Travel site is offering a certain service, and consumer wants to purchase that service. And so in this case, the consumer wants to make sure that this travel agency has the guaranteed bankruptcy insurance. This is a big thing in the Netherlands because travel agencies often go bankrupt while their consumers still haven't made their trip. So, but how do you know for sure that it has? Okay, it has the logo there. Well, this is one of the first exchanges that where the website can share its credentials being a genuine travel website with travel insurance. On the other hand, well, I don't know the older than 18 what type of travel that is. Let's not go there. But anyway, suppose this is a trip for only senior citizens and you have to prove that you are indeed 50 plus or so, then this is something you can do. So every interaction is intrinsically symmetrical. From both sides, you want to verify stuff up till the level that you have enough confidence, enough trust to make the transaction. Also, the output of almost every transaction will be yet another thing that's issued, a verifiable credential. So, for instance, the travel tickets are a verifiable credential, but when you go to your doctor, your recipe is a verifiable credential. A payment request is a verifiable credential. A statement that you're a satisfied customer can be a verifiable credential. So here you see the symmetry and recursiveness, which is currently not there in the software, which is still very much server-client oriented and disempowering. So one of the things that we want to get is more of this symmetry. We want to have higher levels of automation. And the associated savings in cost. I mean, all of this SSI stuff is beautiful, etc. But it is for Europe a $30 billion euro question. At this moment, the verification of wet signatures, the verifications of diplomas, the associated fraud and cost with it, it's at least 30 billion euros. A higher level of trust and automation can save perhaps that amount of money. We are also looking for intermediate solutions. You can't just say at one day, okay, we switch to IPv6, or at one day we switch to SSI as a society, and tomorrow is that day. It's not how it works, so we need to have intermediate steps. Society grade, understandable, ease of use, making something abstract real, like the concept of a folder on your computer is, you know the icon of a folder, and older people still know that it's a piece of paper where you put other pieces of paper in. Solutions for guardianship. How do you represent something else, someone else? What are the levels of authorization? How much case-by-case solutions do we need? How generic can we make it? Court of law, usable evidence of SSI interactions and transactions. For instance, if a website asks you for, and now I'm going to use, Christopher, your example, you're non-due at the station. If a website asks that for you, then we want to make sure that that request was digitally signed and that it can be used in court to a party who is trying to abuse the SSI for such a horrible thing. Webs of trust. Well, thanks to Christopher for introducing the concept of web of trust, but we have all kinds of webs of trust, consumer, governmental, sector specific. If you want to go to a university and you want to know whether it's a real university or a Trump university, you probably want to check somewhere whether it's a real university. Who are you going to trust? Well, then there will be probably an education web of trust, but there will be plenty of these. And of course, the bottom line is the bottom line: business models. Ultimately, this needs to be paid for. This is associated with this automation thing. So this is just my list. It's an initial list, and I want to pick your brain to see how we can do these things and what more needs to be added to the list. And by the way, Christopher, thank you for providing me with your list. So here's the good news. Europe has given my consortium some money. Of course, we always want more money, but the good news is that we have gotten 7 million euros, and we can spend this on sub-grantees. And each of you in an individual, a consortium, a corporation, you can apply to our infrastructure open call, which will open in about a month. And you can earn up to 155,000 euro for developing open source software in the SSI world and integrating it with the stuff that's already there. We have also business open calls, and these are more oriented to SMEs and startups that are developing a new product, a new service in the SSI region that will be useful. And this is to get them started, to get them in contact with venture capitalists, to get the business cases right, to get the business model right. So there's also a lot of technical and business mentoring. We have a party that's called Blue Morpho on board that are specialized in guiding SMEs and startups in this process. So other than getting money, also guidance will be there. So if you have a business and a business opportunity, contact us. So let's see how it's organized. We will have 3 types of open calls. The infrastructure open call is about open source component development. We will have a GitHub environment where sub-grantees will develop software. We will do interoperability tests, integration tests. We will have multiple code bases, have them work together, and trying to build a technical ecosystem. Agile development, that is, it's not just you win the grant, then you do your work and then you deliver. No, it will be an interactive thing with a lot of communication, etc. Focused integration, interoperability, testing, etc. And this will happen in 2 rounds. The first round will open by the end of next month. And I think it's around September that we will, maybe a bit earlier, we will select the first round of subgrantees, and then a bit later there will be a second round, and those will be the people that we're closely collaborating with. One of the outputs of the open call is vision and architecture. Like, okay, integration, what do we mean by integration? What type of commercial things could exist there? And for the first business open call, which also opens in a bit over a month, is about generic SSI functionality, software services, and this is all commercial and competitive. So think like a startup if you want to make something generically useful. For instance, how about a proxy service that works with multiple authentication technologies, that works with multiple SSI technologies for issuers or verifiers on the web that want to support multiple technologies? You invent the wheel for them instead of them having to invent that wheel. And as a proxy service, you make it easy for an issuer to issue both on YOLOCOM, on Sovereign, on, well, whatever, UPort, on whatever SSI technology. So in return, there is market feedback. Then the second business open call that will start a bit later. I think it's the end of this year or early next year. Those are really about sector-specific challenges. So if you're working in the health sector and you are thinking of using something SSI, by that time, both from the infrastructure open call and the business open call, we will have a lot of software components open source available, as well as supporting services. For instance, the issuer proxy service that I just mentioned. Hopefully somebody will come with a proposal there. These are the things that you can use. You can use the products and services from here, the SSI components, and in return we expect you to build something great and to provide feedback on what's coming. We are working on an architecture. This is not the final picture. This is just one of the pictures. As I mentioned, symmetry is important. So this could be the architecture of a single wallet, a single agent. It has both holder functionality, but it has also verifier functionality, and it has issuer functionality. And for things that are self-issued, well, self-issuing is a thing. There's an internal link, but you can also issue to third parties or receive requests. And this is, again, a layered architecture where at the bottom we have a lot of, well, for instance, the DITCOM stuff. This picture is vaguely similar to the one presented by Drummond, and that's not by accident. But maybe you can even use second generation technologies here just as a stepping stone of getting to SSI. Here we have the infrastructure, and the top layer is the business layer, where we have both generic SSI functionalities and sector-specific solutions. The whole thing is associated with a timeline. So end March there will be publication of the first set of open calls. There will be a proposal deadline, there will be an evaluation, and later this year the first subgrantees will kick off. And of course there is a funnel effect. Not every subgrantee will get the full amount. It depends on your performance. It's a funnel, so some of them will make it all the way and some of them will not. So to conclude, I want to pick your brain. I mentioned the three types of open calls and the things that I want to learn from you, and this is at least my question for the workshop, is what are good things, what are missing components that we really need in the infrastructure, what are useful generic SSI services like the proxy services for multi-technologies, and what are very good demonstrator projects for the SSI technology that are sector specific. So those are my questions to you, and perhaps do you have some questions to me?